Ladies and gentlemen, it's our honor to introduce this evening our distinguished guest speaker, New York Police Commissioner William J. Bratton. Rarely do we have the opportunity to hear from one of the most notable and accomplished law enforcement executives in the United States. And given the current state of affairs and all of our concerns about the safety of our employee populations, our customer populations, and the nation as a whole, we're absolutely thrilled that he took the time to meet with us. Before I read his bio, I'd also like to point out that Commissioner Bratton has played a vital role in helping to develop and support both the Los Angeles ORC Association back in the late 2000s and the local Metro effort here in New York City. For that, we owe him a debt of gratitude. William J. Bratton was appointed the 42nd Police Commissioner of the City of New York by Mayor Bill de Blasio, and it is the second time he's held the post. Police Commissioner Bratton established an international reputation for re-engineering police departments and fighting crime in the 90s. As Chief of New York City Transit Police, Boston Police Commissioner, and in his first term as the New York City Police Commissioner, he revitalized morale and cut crime in all three posts, achieving the largest crime declines in New York City's history. At the NYPD in 1994 and 95, he led the development of CompStat, the internationally acclaimed command accountability system now in use by police departments nationwide. As Los Angeles Police Chief from 2002 to 2009, and in a city known for its entrenched gang culture and youth violence, he brought crime to historically low levels, greatly improved race relations, and reached out to young people with a range of innovative police programs. He's the only person ever to lead the police agencies of the nation's two largest cities. A U.S. Army veteran of the Vietnam War, Police Commissioner Bratton began his career in 1970 as a beat cop in the Boston Police Department, where he was cited with the department's top award for valor in 1976 for facing down a bank robber and rescuing a hostage. By 1980, he had risen to Superintendent of Police, the BPD's highest sworn position. He went on to lead progressive change as Chief or Commissioner of 5 other police departments. A noted author, commentator, and consultant, Police Commissioner Bratton holds a bachelor's degree from Boston State College and is a graduate at FBI National Executive Institute. At Harvard University Kennedy's School of Government, he was a senior executive fellow in criminal justice and a member of the school's National Executive Session on Policing. For his collaborative efforts in working with U.S. and British police forces, he was recognized by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II with the honorary title Commander of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire. With that, I'd like to ask you to welcome New York Police Commissioner William Bratton.
Pleasure to be here. It's somewhat of a custom for New York City Police Commissioners to address this group when you hold your conference, and I'm very happy to continue that tradition. Hopefully my remarks tonight will be informative, will be relatively brief, because I and the honor that's going to be bestowed on this young lady beside me, the only thing standing beside you and dinner and continuing your drinking. And we damn sure don't want to get in the middle of all of that. First off, on behalf of Mayor Bill de Blasio, City of New York, and certainly the NYPD, welcome. Those of you who are from the New York region and those of you who have traveled from all over the country, we are very pleased to have you here in our city. So it could be a little warmer, but it is winter after all. In any event, several days you're here, it's supposed to be cold but fair. So get out of here before Friday. We're expecting quite a storm by the end of the week. It is a pleasure to have you here, and what I'd like to talk with you about tonight, about the times that we're living in. And they are, as the Chinese would say, interesting times. Both good times as well as so often a Chinese expression has two meanings, not so safe times in many regards. In my profession, policing, even as we have done so much to reduce traditional crime over the last 25 or 30 years, as we have modernized, we have seen new types of crime, so many that you experience in the retail industry, as well as the new fear, the new concern around terrorism. With the terrific attacks that we experienced here in New York City on 9/11, the world truly changed. So the issue of terrorism is now something that we live with day to day. It's something in your world you have to also anticipate that you might experience at some point in time, as indeed every person in this world today has to do that. With that, I'd like to share some brief remarks with you. Hopefully they are informative. And in terms of where we are in the NYPD, they're also going to be a form of thank you. Thank you for the close collaboration we have with your industry, with the many facets of your industry. And we in New York, the NYPD, as I did when I was chief of the LAPD, we recognize how important you are to any city's vitality, any city's economy, any city's viability. In New York City, we are certainly well aware of our standing as one of the safest large cities in the world, and that safety generates extraordinary levels of tourism. 60 million tourists last year who came here. Many thousands like yourself who come here for conferences, conventions, and many who come here to be educated. But those 60 million tourists, business types like yourself, they spend. And I would encourage that certainly over the next several days that you seek to also spend while you're here, because we could use all the help we can get at any given time. We have also been through many difficult times over these last several years, certainly in your industry with the recession of 2008-9. As we finally start to come out of it, we are starting to feel a rebound. And as you move around the city, between the hotels you're staying in, the restaurants you're patronizing, and you're in one of the better steakhouses here tonight at this establishment, that you're going to notice an awful lot of traffic, you're going to notice an awful lot of tie-ups. Much of that is because of the construction boom that is underway in the city. Something that we are certainly benefiting from in terms of many hundreds of thousands of additional residents that we anticipate will be coming to this city, and the many additional guests that will fill many of these apartment towers and hotels that we are building in the city. We are in the midst of a building boom, and one that we hope will continue, and one that we hope will continue to benefit your industry, the many entities that are represented in New York City. Those 60 million tourists that they visit your stores, they patronize all of the various elements of the retail industry that you represent. And so we want you to have a good time, and we want certainly all of your customers when they come to New York to have a safe and very good time and spend a lot of money in your stores. When they do, that's a lot of tax revenue for the NYPD. As I get the benefit of that, the good economy means more costs for me. And last year, reflective of that, I had the good fortune for the first time in 12 years, the police department was reduced in size by almost 6,000 officers during 12 years. Last year, for the first time, because of the increased viability, improved economy of the city, we got to hire 1,300 more cops. Cops that we are going to very much use in a very appropriate way to continue to keep this city safe. With that, I'll again welcome you to the city, and to what is in New York City certainly remains the world's retail, financial, and business capital. Above all, I think it's because we are safe. A safe city equals safe streets, which lead to increased tourism, business, and in your world, certainly increased retail sales. And on that front, I'm very happy to say that New York City, my city, and your city, whether you live here now or just visiting for 3 days, is safer than it has been in more than 50 years. We entered 2015 with an overall crime rate that this city has not seen since 1961. Murders were the third lowest since the 1950s, after 2014, the all-time record low in 2013. Last year we had 351 murders. When I first came to New York in 1990, we had 2,243. Last year we had about 1,100 shootings in this city. In 1990 we had between 5,000 and 6,000. So the city, and indeed our country, fortunately, is arguably much safer than it used to be. We're doing all of this while we're making fewer arrests, issuing fewer summonses, and conducting fewer stops. In fact, in 2015, we had 1 million fewer enforcement contacts, arrests, summonses, and stops, when compared to the respective 10 years high. It's very important because as the department seeks to build trust, particularly with our minority community in a city where 25% of our residents are immigrants, that it is important that our contacts with them be as positive as possible whenever we can. Understanding there are times certainly when we're going to have to use our enforcement powers. But the good news is, even as crime has gone down, our enforcement activities have gone down with it. In effect, we're realizing the peace dividend I envisioned when I implemented broken windows policing and CompStat back in the early 1990s when I last served as police commissioner here in 1994-1995, during a period of time when the significant crime declines of the last 25 years began and have continued. But as you know, in our business, your business, we don't get much time to basically celebrate our successes, because the next challenge is always waiting around the corner. For you, in the retail industry, those challenges include organized retail crime, cybercrime, data breaches, fraud, and internal theft. When I was class commissioner in 1994, one of the units I created back in 1994 was a 10-person detective computer crime unit to deal with the new crime that we were beginning to experience, identity theft, something that we had really not had much experience with or much problem with. So think of that, as recently as 1994, the largest police department in the country finally got around to creating a unit that was going to deal with computer crime. Little did we know, maybe little did you know, back in 1994, how much of a problem that was eventually going to become in the 21st century. On top of that, the high profile of your retail brands and the heavy foot traffic in many of your stores make your buildings a possible target for active shooters and other terrorist threats. On 9/11, the world changed. The world changed dramatically, and for the rest of our lives and those of our children, unfortunately, it will continue to change as it relates to the threat of terrorism. Any incident of violence in the workplace impacts the safety and security of your employees, and certainly as well as your customers. And it impacts my city and my department. We understand that we must always innovate to effectively combat the ever-changing threats we face. And I think 1970, when I joined policing as a young cop in Boston, through those next 45 years, how the world of policing, how the threats we face have so dramatically changed. It's mind-boggling. Last year, to deal with the new emerging threats, we created 2 new units in the NYPD. Those 1,300 additional cops I received were in some part designed to staff several of these new units. We now have a strategic response group, 800 officers, volunteers, specially trained, specially equipped, special vehicles, heavy equipment, rifles, all types of specialized training to deal with our crowd management and control demonstrations, and certainly you're well aware of the many, many celebratory events we have in the city, the Thanksgiving Day Parade, the recent events up here at Rockefeller Center. So we have to have a highly trained unit to deal with the traditional crowd management, crowd control. But if something goes wrong at those events, we also need officers that can quickly move from a more gentile policing into a more assertive policing to take on whatever that threat. Additionally, we now have, as a result of the ISIS threat that has begun to envelop the world, we recently created a 550-person critical response command in our counterterrorism unit. Also highly trained, especially equipped with the long guns and the heavy vests. These are the entities, the officers you'll oftentimes see standing guard over facilities. They are also first responders in the event we were to have an active shooter situation anywhere in the city. These 1,300 some odd officers, in addition to the 650 we have always had in our emergency service unit. So reflective of the changing times in this city, America's largest city, we now have over 2,000 officers highly trained, and at any given time in the city, 300 to 500 of them on duty to respond to multiple threats, similar to what we saw in Mumbai several years ago, and similar to what we recently saw in Paris. The world has changed, and policing needs to change with it. And much the same as in your industry, the retail industry, you have had to change so dramatically over the last 20 years to embrace technology. The retail world has shifted dramatically, as you know, from the concrete and store to the internet. The world has changed dramatically in your world, and we have to change in ours to keep up with it. When you include our emergency service people, as I mentioned, we now have over 2,000 officers that are equipped to deal with any of these issues. And it's part of how we intend to keep New York safe. But we can't do it alone. And this is where you come in. This is where the security entities within your offices, where you in the retail industry and all that you represent are so important to what we need to do. So to deal with a lot of your issues, in the last several years, my 2 years now as police commissioner, 2 years ago we created a 250-person detective unit to deal with the issue of grand larceny, to deal with the increasing threat going back to my 10-person computer crimes unit in 1994. The threat and the use of computers, the use of technology to commit theft has expanded that dramatically, that we had to create a 250-person detective unit specializing in cybercrime, identity theft, and specializing in many of the frauds that are committed against many of your retail establishments. We also, just recently, created with the FBI a new cybercrime unit with them, staffed initially by a sergeant and 6 detectives, working with the FBI as they begin to expand their focus on dealing with that multiplying issue. Cy Vance, the district attorney for Manhattan, where so much of the retail industry of your world and the world that we help the police is centered, he has recently created a whole new unit, which we are also helping to staff to deal very specifically with cybercrime and the many threats against not only your world, the retail industry, but against the financial community, which is also so much a part of the fabric of New York City. But as I mentioned, we can't do it alone. We'll always rely on your partnership and the expertise of you and your security personnel, as no one knows the issues your industry faces better than you. You live them every day. We're always looking for productive ways to collaborate with the business community, all facets of that community, and specifically with our retailers, you, who are so important to our local economy, our job market, and our tourism industry. These partnerships are vital, they're essential, and they must be seamless. And the shining example of how well we can work together toward a common goal is the Organized Retail Crime Alliance. When I was in Los Angeles as chief of the LAPD, we launched a very successful version of that program back in 2009, my last year there as chief. At that time, we were seeing more and more organized groups going around from city to city, policing consumers and policing you and your stores, then putting those stolen wares right back on the market. The FBI estimates that this is a $30 billion a year industry, and its costs are felt across society. Higher prices for consumers, less sales tax revenue for state and local governments. We estimate that the state of New York loses about $100 million a year to cigarettes that are sold without tax stamps, as one example. And major health and safety threats to customers and staff. These crews, as we call them, don't bother with precinct boundaries, state lines, or police jurisdictions, or international borders for that matter. But we couldn't afford to get hung up on that either. So we had to broaden our reach and extend our collaborative efforts beyond our department, beyond our fellow law enforcement agencies, and into your world, the private sector. It worked in LA, and has worked in other parts of the country. And when I came back to the NYPD 2 years ago, I made it a priority to make it work here too. Frankly, I was actually shocked that an Organized Retail Crime Alliance wasn't already operating here. So in April 2014, we met initially with 10 nationwide retail corporations, some are represented in this room, and 18 outside law enforcement agencies to discuss the creation of a New York Metro Organized Retail Crime Alliance, NYPD. These 10 retailers became the founding partners of our alliance, formally established in September 2014, with more than 50 different law enforcement agencies and now more than 125 different retailers and, very importantly, offices of district attorneys. Our goal was to enhance information sharing and better address financial losses due to retail crime. We can catch the perps after the 5th time instead of waiting for the 25th time, and take the necessary measures to shut down their illegal operations permanently, but only if we work together. I want to commend the architects of New York City's program, including Lieutenant Tariq Shepard and those at the Grand Larceny Division, as well as our industry partners, some of whom are in this room. They developed a website that allows Alliance members to gather and share intelligence relating to organized retail crime, to have a greater transparency than we had in the past. It is a real-time crime alert system and is a true model of substantial, effective collaboration between public and private partners, as well as between separate law enforcement agencies. The website not only enables law enforcement and retailers to communicate about these crimes in a timely fashion basis, but it also saves the information in a written and mapped format, searchable by crime and suspect type. This gives all members the ability to search the website to connect cases and establish patterns and trends. There's also a detailed contact list, which gives law enforcement and retailers a direct connection to each other, vastly reducing investigation time. Instead of having, for the first time, try to find somebody that can help you with your problem, it already exists. In addition, members may upload photographs, crime bulletins, and videos to share with that Alliance community. If you're not already a member of it, you should become a member. This platform created a portal that is used to share information, strategies, and updates to identify and arrest regional crews who commit the majority of retail organized crime. Currently, monthly meetings and conference calls are held between law enforcement partners, prosecutors, and retailers to problem solve, network, update each other on current and past investigations, identify trends. As investigators and retailers in this region begin identifying patterns and tracking information, it has become apparent that the triangle of theft, fencing, and resale was mapping itself over New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. In response, the alliance was expanded to cover the entirety of these 3 states. In the New York, New Jersey, and PA Metro, Pennsylvania area organized retail crime alliance, now known as Metro ORC, went fully operational just a few weeks ago. I have a hard time pronouncing this. It's METRORCA, Metro RCA. Currently represents more than 150 law enforcement agencies and now more than 170 retailers and security groups. We're working to shrink the world of organized retail crime, reduce investigation time, and to close the communication gap between our respective entities. The end result will be better for your business, better for your consumers' confidence, and better for my city, in my case, my city, and for our national economy. But it cannot happen, it has not happened without the help and support of each and every one of your companies. Thank you for all that your companies do with us, and I look forward to expanding that alliance significantly in the months and years ahead. It's not a matter of should we, it's a matter of we must. Thank you so much for your attention, and enjoy your time here in New York. It is America, if not the world's greatest city, and one I hope you get the opportunity to thoroughly enjoy during your time here. I very much appreciate the opportunity to be here with you this evening. Thank you.